I was called daughter so many times, but those words never sounded so empty. The woman who told me she loved me, who welcomed me on cold nights of uncertainty, was the same one who, in a moment of anger, wrote my name on the rebels list. For years, I was there, shoulder to shoulder, within the walls of the church that I always considered my home. I remember the smell of fresh coffee that filled the hall after services. I helped organize everything, from the altar to the kitchen, always smiling, even when loneliness embraced me. No one seemed to notice, but I was there, invisible, sustaining the faith of others while mine slowly faded away. But nothing could have prepared me for what would happen that fateful afternoon when the sunlight seemed colder and more distant. It was one of those days when joy felt like a mask, and I felt a weight in my heart, as if something was about to happen. It was on that day that I learned the true meaning of the word sister. When I stood up to share a doubt that tormented me, I didn't expect her, the voice I respected, to stand up as well. "You are not part of our group," she said, with a look that cut like a knife. "You are a problem." The world around me stopped. I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet, and the pain of betrayal hit me like a tsunami. But there was something they didn't know. At that moment, something inside me woke up. A strength I didn't know existed began to form. That silence that once suffocated me was now turning into an internal scream, clamoring for justice, for recognition. When everything came to light, I realized that I was the one who sustained that space, who made their faith pulse. Even if in shadows, they never knew that my presence, even invisible, was the light that illuminated their beliefs. I was the invisible servant, but now I felt that invisibility was a choice, not a condemnation. I learned that true love is not revealed in empty words but in actions. That moment of rejection made me understand that behind the masks of sanctity, there was a hypocrisy I could no longer endure. God knew what was in each heart, and I finally began to listen to the voice that had always been inside me, the one pleading for freedom and authenticity. Sometimes, the worst pain is not being expelled but realizing that the love we believed we received was never real. Today, I continue on my path, stronger and more aware. The silence that once imprisoned me is now my ally, and the truth that emerged guides me. It's worth reflecting on this. How many times have you felt invisible among those who were supposed to welcome you? True faith doesn't hide behind labels and checklists. If this story touched you, maybe it resonates with someone who needs to hear it. Because, in the end, each of us deserves to be truly seen and loved. The journey after that dark afternoon was not easy. It wasn't enough just to distance myself from that space I once considered sacred. I needed to understand what had really happened. What was faith, after all? A rigid structure that crumbled at the first sign of fragility? With each passing day, I felt like a stranger in a place that should have been mine, as if the church walls now stared at me with disdain. The following days were filled with deafening silence. I distanced myself, but the echo of those words still resonated in my mind. "You are a problem." Those words, thrown like a curse, turned into a mantra that I repeated to understand the pain. But instead of sinking, they began to propel me. What did it mean to be a problem? For them, maybe. But for me, I was made of questions, uncertainties, and a burning desire for the truth. And that should not be a problem. I started looking for other spaces, other voices. I met people who had also been marginalized, who carried their own wounds. Together, we shared our stories, our struggles. Each narrative was a piece of light that was forming a new understanding of what community was. The warmth of acceptance was there, not in a hall adorned with crosses, but in sincere exchanges, in shared tears, and in the laughter that sprang from overcome pain. There was a support group at a community center, where people gathered to discuss not just faith, but life in its complexity. There were no labels. We were just human beings, with our wounds and hopes. And it was there that I realized the love I was looking for didn't need to come from an institutional structure, but from true and deep connections. "You don't need to be perfect to be loved," a friend told me, and those words were like a balm to my wounded soul. With each meeting, I felt stronger. The sense of belonging that I lacked in the church began to flourish in the conversations we had. We shared our stories of pain, but also of resilience. And, little by little, I began to let go of the idea that I needed approval to be who I am. Authenticity started to become my new form of faith. But still, the memory of that rejection haunted me. I still felt a weight, a need to understand what had happened with those who were my sisters in faith. What had made them become so insensitive? What led them to distance themselves from me in a moment of vulnerability? And it was in one of these reflections that I realized something powerful. The hypocrisy I saw within those walls did not end with them. It was a reflection of human fear, of the fear of facing one's own fragility. That rejection was not just mine, it was a symptom of a system that feared the truth over time. New voices emerged within me. I began to write. The act of putting on paper what I felt gave me a new perspective. I transformed my pains into words, into poems that spoke about the search for belonging, about the struggle for acceptance. Each sentence was a form of liberation, a cry against the injustice I had lived. Writing became my sacred, my temple, where I could be completely myself without fear of judgment. Through writing, I also found a new form of dialogue with God. No longer in pleas for acceptance, but in sincere questioning. I asked why pain existed, why people hurt each other in the name of love, and as I wrote, I realized that spirituality didn't need to be a path of ready-made answers. It could be a space for questions, uncertainties, and the search for meaning. In one of these reflections, I realized that although I had been expelled from one place, I had found others that welcomed me. True love is not limited to a physical space. It can be built anywhere there is sincerity and respect. And this brought me a new understanding of faith. It is not a structure but a living experience. It is not about what is said, but about what is done. And so, my story transformed into a new form of faith, freer, more authentic. I learned to love myself, to accept myself as I am, with all my imperfections. The pain of rejection turned into a force that drove me to seek my own paths. And, looking back, I realized that experience was not the end, but a new beginning. If you have ever felt invisible, know that there is a path to the light. Sometimes, one needs to step away from the darkness to find their own voice. True love does not hide in empty words, it reveals itself in actions. The journey of self-discovery was not simple. There were days when the pain of rejection became almost unbearable. I found myself confronting memories of laughter and hugs that now seemed like distant echoes. What had I done to deserve that treatment? The questions piled up, but over time, I realized that each one was an opportunity to look within myself. A chance to understand that rejection did not define my worth, but was a reflection of the world around me. It was in one of those moments of introspection that I decided I needed to tell my story. Not just for myself, but for those who, like me, felt alone in their pain. I started gathering people into a small support group in my home. It was a welcoming space where we could share our experiences of injustice and exclusion. Each meeting became a celebration of vulnerability, a safe space where we could be who we really were, without fear of being judged. In the beginning, we were just a few lost souls, but slowly the group grew. Each new voice that joined us brought a new layer of understanding about pain and resilience. We discussed not only the injustices we faced but also how we could support each other. What was once a burden transformed into a shared burden, and that strengthened us. We discovered that by talking about our wounds, we were also healing each other. I remember one evening when a new participant, Clara, walked through the door. She was visibly nervous, with tear-filled eyes, when she shared her story. She told us that she had been expelled from her own community for questioning doctrines that did not make sense to her. The pain in her voice echoed within me, and I felt an instant connection. It was as if, in some way, all of us carried a piece of the same story. What touched me deeply impactful was seeing how, by opening up, Clara not only freed herself from her burdens, but also inspired others to do the same. With each meeting, new stories emerged. Each account was a testimony to the strength that forms when empathy and understanding are found. The group became a microcosm of hope, where tears were welcome and laughter was a balm. The love I once sought in rigid structures was now there, pulsating in the genuine interactions among us. But there were also moments of pain. The healing process is not linear. And there were days when the memories of rejection came back with full force. On one of those nights, while sharing my story, a friend's voice broke. What if I never feel accepted again? That question hung in the air, and the collective sadness became palpable. But instead of succumbing, we decided that this would be a moment for reflection. We talked about how acceptance must begin within ourselves, as an act of love that doesn't depend on external validation. That was when I began to realize the power of storytelling. Through the act of telling and listening to stories, we not only processed the pain but also began to rewrite our own narratives. The pains of the past became chapters of a new story, one that spoke of resilience, strength, and, above all, self-love. What was once a burden transformed into a testament of overcoming. Over time, I began to feel more comfortable exploring and questioning the faith that had been taught to me. I no longer needed to passively accept everything that was imposed on me. I started to read, study, and delve into different spiritual interpretations. I discovered that there were as many ways to understand the divine as there were people in the world. This diversity fascinated me and gave me the courage to seek what truly resonated within me. One night, as I was reflecting on all of this, I realized that true spirituality wasn't about following rigid rules, but about living authentically. I no longer needed to fit into molds that didn't represent me. Faith, which once seemed like a prison, now revealed itself as a free dance, where I could be myself without fear of making mistakes. And so, the group meetings became not just a space for healing but for spiritual growth. We began to explore practices of meditation, art, and even celebration rituals that integrated the diverse experiences of each person. With each session, love became more tangible, more real. I learned that love is not something to be earned, but something to be cultivated, and that true community is built on respect and acceptance of differences. There were still challenges ahead. Of course, the fight against hypocrisy and exclusion is not an easy battle, but now, I knew I wasn't alone. Every voice that rose beside me was a reminder that truth, however difficult and painful it might be, had the power to unite and strengthen us. What was once an individual burden now became a collective cause. Each of us carried a story that, when shared, illuminated not only our pain but also the beauty of our journeys. Over time, we realized that we were not just healing. We were creating a new kind of community, a space where love was not just a word, but a daily practice. Through our interactions, we learned to listen to each other, to embrace each other's vulnerabilities, and above all, to celebrate our victories. No matter how small they were, one night, around a campfire, we decided to do something different. Each of us brought an object that represented our journey. The idea was to share not only our pain but also what we had found in life. Path after rejection. When it was my turn, I held a pen and a notebook. These pages, I said, are where I wrote my stories, where I turned pain into words. They helped me understand that my voice is valid and that my experience, no matter how painful it was, can serve as an inspiration for others. The act of sharing those objects gave life to a ritual of celebration. That campfire was not just a source of heat but a symbol of our rebirth. Each object brought was a testimony of overcoming, a reminder that even in the darkness, there was room for light. And, as we looked into each other's eyes, we realized that we were all part of the same fabric, intertwined by our stories of pain and resilience. As the meetings became more frequent, a desire began to bloom within me, to bring this experience to more people. I saw the transformation happening in our small group and believed that other people also needed to hear our stories and feel welcomed. So, I decided to organize an event open to the community. A space where we could not only share our experiences but also offer acceptance and empathy to those going through similar situations. The preparation for the event was a challenge. I had to face my own fears and insecurities. What would people think? What if no one showed up? But by sharing these concerns with my friends, I realized that true strength lay in vulnerability. If one person feels seen and heard, it will have been worth it, one of them told me, with those words echoing in my mind. We moved forward. The day of the event arrived and, to my surprise, the room was full. People from different stories and backgrounds gathered, all united by the search for a safe space. When I saw those faces, I felt a wave of emotion. It was as if we were all there, not just to tell our stories, but to build a new kind of community, one based on acceptance and authenticity. We conducted the event with a sharing circle, where everyone had the opportunity to speak. When my turn came, my heart was pounding. I began to share not just my story, but the journey of all of us. I spoke about the pain of rejection, but also about the beauty we found in coming together. I talked about how faith can be a journey of discovery and not just a set of rules. At the end of my speech, something magical happened. A woman raised her hand and began to share her story. Her voice trembled, but the courage in her eyes was palpable. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. With each story that followed, the emotions intensified. The shared pain united us, and in those words, healing began to emerge. The event became a milestone in our lives. What started as an idea, a desire to welcome, turned into a movement. People began to connect, exchange contacts, form bonds. What was a temporary space became a regular meeting point. We decided we would not stop there. We wanted to create a continuous cycle of support and sharing over time. The idea of expanding the group to other communities took shape. We began visiting community centers, schools, and even other churches, bringing our message of acceptance and love. Each new interaction was an opportunity to plant seeds of hope in hearts that, like mine, had been wounded. Through this journey, I realized that true love is not just about being accepted, but about accepting differences, vulnerabilities, the humanity in each of us. I learned that true spirituality manifests when we unite around what makes us human, and not around our differences. It is in this union that we find the strength to fight against injustice, hypocrisy, and pain, and thus, my story transformed into many other stories. What began as an experience of rejection became a testimony of hope and transformation. The pain did not disappear, but now it was accompanied by a new perspective. The wounds that once seemed insurmountable were now part of a mosaic of experiences that told a story of overcoming and resilience. With each new interaction, I realized that what I had lived within the walls of the church did not define my spirituality. True faith manifested in the small actions of daily life, in the compassion we offer to each other, and in the ability to embrace others' pain. In those encounters, I not only found support, but I also discovered the strength of being vulnerable. By opening my heart, I realized that I was not alone, and that other people also carried their scars. One of the participants, Renata, brought a powerful reflection in one of our meetings. "Pain is a teacher," she said, and her words echoed within me. Each of us, on our journey, could choose how to deal with pain. We could let it consume us, or we could use it as a tool for transformation. The decision to not allow rejection to define us was a crucial step. Through this understanding, we began to free ourselves from the chains that rejection had imposed on us. So we decided it was time to take this message beyond the walls of our group. We began planning workshops and meetings open to the community, where we could explore themes like acceptance, self-love, and overcoming pain. The goal was to create a space where people felt safe to share their experiences, just as we had. We wanted to show that, even in the midst of pain, there was a clear path to the light. With each workshop, the transformation became more visible. What was once a small group of wounded people turned into a growing support network. We began to see new faces, people who dared to enter the room, often with a wary look, but who by the end left with a smile on their face and a new sparkle in their eyes. Each new shared story was a reminder that pain is not a burden to be carried alone. It is an experience that, when shared, becomes lighter. One afternoon, at the end of a workshop, a young woman named Anna approached me. She was hesitant, as if shame prevented her from opening up. After a few moments of silence, she finally said, "I don't know if I'm worthy of being here." That phrase cut me. How could someone doubt their worth in a space meant to offer warmth and love? Calmly, I responded that we were all worthy of being there, regardless of our stories or wounds. True acceptance begins within us and radiates out to others. Our group became a place of liberation, where each tear shed was a step toward healing. And with that, we also started to realize that true love is not limited to a physical space but expands in each genuine interaction we have. I remembered a saying I heard once, "Love is an act of courage." And there, in that group, courage was present in each of us. As we continued to meet, the conversations began to deepen. We discussed not only our pains, but also the importance of celebrating the small victories. Often, we get caught in narratives of pain and suffering, but by recognizing the achievements, even small ones, we begin to rewrite the story we tell ourselves. At each meeting, we decided to dedicate time to share these moments of joy. It was as if each victory became a beacon of hope, lighting the way for all of us. The stories of overcoming began to flow. Anna, for example, shared how, after months of struggle, she reconnected with her passion for art. She began painting as a way to express her emotions and, at one of the meetings, she brought one of her works. It was a vibrant canvas, full of colors and life. "This is me now," she said, with a smile brimming with pride. At that moment, we all celebrated not just the art, but the beauty of transformation. As time went by, the group became a true community. We created bonds that went beyond the meetings. We supported each other in difficult times, celebrated achievements, and, above all, learned to listen. Active listening became one of the pillars of our group. We learned that, many times, what people need most is someone who is simply willing to listen without judgment. And by doing so, we created a welcoming space that allowed each voice to be heard and respected. The impact of these meetings began to spread throughout the community. We received invitations to participate in events at schools and recovery centers. Our message of acceptance and love was spreading, and with it, more people started to join us. Each new member brought with them a new perspective, enriching our discussions even more. What started as a small support group soon turned into a movement that sought not only to reclaim our own stories but also to touch the lives of others who felt lost and invisible. With each meeting, the room became fuller, but not just with new faces. It was also filled with hope and a genuine desire for change. One of the participants, Mariana, brought a powerful reflection in one of our meetings. When we share our stories, not only do we free ourselves, but we also give courage to others to do the same. Those words echoed within me, and I realized that our journey was just beginning. One night, we decided to organize an event open to the community, a space where we could share not only our experiences but also offer support to those going through similar situations. The preparation for the event was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity for growth. Together, we discussed how to make that space welcoming and safe, where everyone could feel comfortable opening up. What we most wanted was for no one to feel the way I felt within those church walls, invisible and rejected. The day of the event arrived and the room was full. I looked around and saw familiar and unfamiliar faces, all there in search of something that is often difficult to name: belonging. As we began to speak, I realized that the nervousness I felt was dissipating as the stories were shared. Each account brought a new perspective, and the pain that once seemed so isolated began to transform into a chorus of voices. With each word, the connection between us grew stronger, and the room was filled with a warmth I had never felt before. During the event, a woman stood up and began to share her story. Her voice trembled, but there was a strength in her words that resonated with all of us. She spoke about the pain of rejection, about how shadows were cast over her faith. And I knew exactly how she felt. When she finished, the room was silent. But it was not a silence of discomfort, it was a silence of understanding and empathy. In that moment, I realized that each of us was there not only to tell our stories but also to listen and validate each other's experiences. After the event, people started to connect. What was once a temporary space turned into a regular meeting point. We decided that we would not stop there. We wanted to create a continuous cycle of support and sharing. We began planning more meetings, where we could further explore the themes that united us. With each new meeting, more voices were raised, and the strength of our group grew. The feeling that we were a community became more real every day. I remember one night when we discussed the importance of forgiveness. One of the participants, Anna, shared how she had struggled to forgive those who had rejected her. She talked about how forgiveness did not mean forgetting, but rather freeing oneself from the weight that pain brings. That conversation was a turning point. We began to realize that, although pain was a part of our stories, forgiveness could be the key to unlocking new possibilities. It was not an easy process, but together, we decided it was worth trying. As the weeks went by, I noticed that each of our journeys was interconnected. The stories of pain that we shared were like threads interwoven, forming a fabric of resilience. With each meeting, we became more than just a support group. We were a network of love and acceptance. And, amidst all of this, we also began to discuss how we could take this message beyond ourselves, how we could impact more lives. That's how we decided to organize an awareness campaign. We wanted people to know that they were not alone, that there was a space where they could be welcomed. We began planning events in schools and community centers, where we could share our stories and hear those of others. The idea was to create a safe space where vulnerability was celebrated, and where pain could be transformed into strength. At the first event of the campaign, I saw familiar faces and new people, all united in the search for understanding and acceptance. The atmosphere was charged with expectation, and the energy was palpable. When the stories began to flow, I realized that something magical was happening. Each person's pain became a fuel, a motivator for change. With each story told, the space became safer, and people started to open their hearts, sharing experiences they had often kept for so long. That day, a young woman named Beatrice introduced herself and began to tell her story. She spoke about her struggle with anxiety and how it distanced her from her faith. There was a sparkle in her eyes, even as she shared her pain. When she finished, a wave of applause echoed through the room, and I realized that day, a young woman named Beatrice introduced herself and began to tell her story. She spoke about her struggle with anxiety and how it distanced her from her faith. There was a sparkle in her eyes, even as she shared her pain. When she finished, a wave of applause echoed through the room, and I realized that her courage was touching all of us in a profound way. That moment became a symbol of what we were building together, a safe space where vulnerability was not only accepted but celebrated. After Beatrice's presentation, the atmosphere filled with a palpable human warmth. People began to look at each other with new eyes, as if what had previously been just a group of strangers had now become a true community. A woman raised her hand and shared that she too had struggled with anxiety, and thus, the conversation unfolded into an open dialogue, where everyone felt free to express their experiences. It was as if the walls that had once separated us were crumbling, giving way to a space of acceptance and empathy. While listening to those stories, I realized we were creating a new kind of narrative, no longer the story of rejection and pain that I knew so well, but a story of collective overcoming. With each new voice, new layers of understanding formed, and the idea that we were all interconnected became more evident. It was as if, by sharing our weaknesses, we were also revealing our strengths. That night became a milestone not only for us but also for the community around us. People began to connect in ways I had never imagined. What was once an individual burden now became a shared burden. Every tear shed was a form of purification, and the pain that had once separated us now united us. We began to realize that by talking about our wounds, we were also making space for healing. With each meeting, more people joined us, bringing their own stories and experiences. As time went on, we decided it was time to expand this journey. The idea of creating a larger event, where we could share our stories with an even wider audience, began to take shape in our conversations. We wanted more people to feel welcomed, more voices to be heard, and more hearts to find a safe place to open up. Excitement grew as we discussed how to make this event a reality. What had started as a small support group was now transforming into a movement of love and acceptance. The preparation for the event was intense. Together, we passionately discussed every detail. We created a plan to promote the event, designed posters, and even rehearsed how we wanted to present ourselves. With each meeting, we felt the pulsating energy of change. It was as if we were building something bigger than ourselves, a legacy of hope that could touch many lives. The empathy that flourished among us turned into a powerful force, ready to be shared. On the day of the event, the room was packed. I looked around and saw familiar and new faces, all there with the same desire, to find a space where they could be heard and welcomed. When we began, the atmosphere was one of expectation and anxiety. Each of us had a story to tell, and at the same time, there was a subtle fear of how it would be received. But, looking into people's eyes, I realized we were all there for a common reason: the search for belonging. The first to present was Clara, who had become a close friend throughout our journey. She spoke about her experience of exclusion in a religious community and how it led her to question her own faith. As Clara spoke, the silence in the room deepened, her words resonated, and I saw tears streaming down the faces of some listeners. It was a powerful moment, and the connection forming between us was palpable. It was as if each of us was holding the other's hand, offering support and unconditional love. After Clara's speech, other stories began to flow. Each account was a testimony of pain, but also of the strength that emerges when we decide to open up. A young woman named Sophia shared how rejection made her question her own worth. At the end of her story, the room was silent, but it was a welcoming silence. Empathy was present there, and understanding spread like a balm over exposed wounds. With each new story, emotions intensified, laughter and tears intertwined, creating a space where pain was not a burden but a bridge that united us. I realized we were creating a new narrative, one where love and acceptance prevailed over the pain of rejection. It was a space where everyone had the right to be heard, to be seen, to be loved. When it was my turn to speak, I felt my heart race. The words were there, but vulnerability made me hesitate. I looked around and saw encouraging faces, some familiar, others new, but all with a glimmer of understanding in their eyes. I took a deep breath and began to share. I talked about the pain of rejection, about how I felt invisible in a place that was supposed to be my home. Each word seemed heavy, yet at the same time, it released a weight I had been carrying for so long. I was called daughter, but in a moment of anger, I was reduced to a problem, I said, my voice trembling. And along the way, I realized that pain can be a teacher. The silence in the room was no longer one of discomfort, but of acceptance. Everyone there knew what it felt like to be helpless, and the tears that began to slide down my face were a reflection of the collective pain we shared. When I finished, I felt a wave of emotions spreading through the room. People started clapping, but to me, that applause wasn't just for me, it was for all of us. It was a celebration of our courage to expose our wounds and, at the same time, recognition that shared pain becomes lighter. A woman who had been listening attentively raised her hand and said, "Thank you for sharing that. Your story gave me the courage to share mine." And so the cycle of sharing continued. Each story that followed was a new layer of understanding, a new connection. We talked about the difficulties of dealing with rejection, but also about the small victories we managed to celebrate along the way. What was once a conversation about pain transformed into a dialogue about hope. And in that space, we discovered that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but of strength. One of the participants, Juliana, shared how rejection led her to a place of introspection. I withdrew from everything, but it was in that withdrawal that I found the essence of who I really am, she said. I learned that true faith is not about following rules, but about connecting with what is inside of us. Her words resonated with me, and I realized that we were all on a journey of self-discovery, seeking to understand not only who we were, but also what it truly meant to belong. As the conversation flowed, a deep sense of empathy began to unite us. A young woman named Paula, who had arrived later, shared how she had struggled to find her place in the world after being rejected by her family. The pain isolated me, but here, among you, I finally feel seen, she said, her eyes shining with emotion. At that moment, a warmth spread through the room, and I realized that the love we sought was not in a physical space, but in the bond we were creating. The stories continued to flow, and with each recounting, the room became a safer place. With each tear shed, we felt that we were not only sharing pain, but also beginning to rewrite our narratives. We were no longer just victims of rejection. We were survivors, each of us bringing a new perspective and a new understanding of what it meant to be part of a community. In one of the subsequent meetings, we decided it was time to create a mural of our stories. Each of us would bring an object that represented our journey, and together, we would create a space that symbolized our resilience. When the day of the mural arrived, the room was full of anticipation and emotion. Each object brought was a part of our story. Some brought photos, others, letters they had written to themselves in moments of pain. When I arrived with a small notebook, I explained that those pages contained not only my stories but also the tales of others I had met along the way. These pages are proof that pain can be transformed into something beautiful, I said as I placed it on the mural. I felt a wave of gratitude. We were creating something that transcended our individual experiences. A symbol of collective strength, the mural became a space for reflection and celebration. Each time we gathered, we looked at it and remembered that our stories, no matter how painful, were also testimonies of overcoming. We started discussing the possibility of taking our project to the community, encouraging others to share their stories as well. The idea of an art and sharing event began to take shape. As we planned the event, I realized there was something magical in how our stories were intertwining. Each of our journeys was unique, but together, we formed a rich mosaic of experiences. The love and acceptance we cultivated there were expanding, and I felt that the light I had found in the midst of darkness was now illuminating not only our lives but also the lives of others. On the day of the art and sharing event, the room was full of color and emotion. Every corner displayed a piece of our stories, and I could not contain the emotion as I saw laughter and smiles intertwining with tears and memories. The space that once was a source of pain now pulsed with life and hope. What began as a small support group had transformed into a vibrant movement, where each of us became part of something greater. When the event began, people entered hesitantly but were soon enveloped by the warm energy of the environment, the sound of laughter and conversations mixed with the aroma of fresh coffee and homemade treats, creating an atmosphere cozy. As we looked around, the connection that was forming was palpable. Each face reflected the journey of someone who, like me, had faced rejection but was now there, willing to share and listen. Each of us had the opportunity to talk about the item we had brought. The stories that emerged were filled with vulnerability and courage. One woman brought a book, explaining that it helped her find solace during moments of solitude. Another brought a flower, symbolizing the beauty that can arise even amidst chaos. As we listened, the space became a living testament to overcoming and resilience. It was as if we were weaving a tapestry of experiences, where each thread told a unique story, but all interwoven by the same theme: the search for belonging. At the end of the event, we decided that it wasn't enough to just share our stories. We also wanted to do something that would impact the community. The idea of a community art project began to gain traction. We wanted to create a public mural, a space where others could feel comfortable leaving their marks and telling their stories. Each person could contribute a piece that represented their experiences, creating a mosaic that spoke of the diversity and strength of our community. With this new mission in mind, we started planning. We gathered to discuss how to make this a reality, and ideas began to flow. One of the participants suggested that, in addition to the mural, we could organize art workshops where others could learn to express their emotions through painting, sculpture, and writing. The excitement was contagious, and the vision of a space where healing and creativity met seemed increasingly tangible. The project began to take shape quickly. While organizing the workshops, we started receiving support from local artists and activists who were interested in our cause. The enthusiasm grew, and the idea of creating a mural that celebrated our stories turned into a reality. The union of forces brought a new energy to our group, and we realized that art had the power to transcend words, communicating emotions that were often difficult to express. In the days that followed, the workshops began. Each meeting was filled with laughter, tears, and discoveries. We learned to let ourselves go, to let emotions flow through paint and pencil. There was no right or wrong. Each one brought their own interpretation, making the experience even richer. It was as if each stroke we drew was a form of liberation, a step towards acceptance. I remember one day in particular, when a young woman named Louisa entered the workshop. She was visibly nervous and hesitant, but as soon as she started painting, her eyes sparkled with a new light. The expression of pain on her face turned into a smile as she saw her creation come to life. By the end of the workshop, she shared that art had become her form of therapy, a way to deal with the pain she carried. That revelation resonated with me and everyone present, and I realized how much we were really creating a space. Before you leave, do two things now. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive the next messages, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. To continue, watch the next video. It's already in the cards and also in the description.